I'm ready.
I'm recording now.
Welcome everyone, to the members of our gallery and to the viewers on Council's webcast to this extraordinary Council meeting. We're holding this on the 22nd of October 2021, and I will start the meeting by requesting the General Manager to recite the statement of respect while everybody stands, please.
The Norfolk Island Regional Council promotes a climate of respect for all. We will endeavour to inspire in our community shared civic pride by valuing and protecting our unique culture and environment, both natural and built, for the current and future generations. We, the Interim Administrator and the staff of the Norfolk Island Regional Council, undertake to act with honesty and integrity, to conduct ourselves in a way that engenders trust and confidence in the decisions we make and the actions that we take on behalf of the Norfolk Island community. We acknowledge the Norfolk Island people, the traditional custodians of this island.
Thank you, Mr. General Manager. For the record, Mr. General Manager, are there any apologies?
No.
I just have my usual apology for having to attend this meeting remotely. The reasons are the same as usual. The travel restrictions to Ireland have prevented me from being there today. Mr. General Manager, are there any disclosures of interest?
No.
I note in relation to item 5 that we gave the community opportunities to address me in public access sessions which were conducted yesterday. 6 people took the opportunity to participate in those public address sessions. And in addition to that, over the last 24 hours, I have received a number of written submissions, all of which I have read. I'll move to item 6. There is a single report on today's council meeting business paper on the subject of resource support, a proposal from Peak Services, which is an arm of the Local Government Association of Queensland. Mr. General Manager, could you run through the salient issues, please?
Thanks, Mr. Interim Administrator. Before you today is a report that is asking you to consider the engagement of resources to address a number of urgent and outstanding issues that we need to address within the next 12 months. The report focuses on the fact that we need specific local government resources. And as such, we went to go and find what was available in the market, whether it was with New South Wales or with Queensland. And before you is the proposal that was best suited to our needs for the next 12 months. Peak Services is located within Local Government House in Newstead in Brisbane. And there's currently over 200 local government experts that operate within that state Peaks body house. We're asking to engage 4 specific positions in the first proposal. They'll be only engaged 4 days a week, and they will be concentrating on financial and governance matters. The arrangement, as I said, is for 12 months, but we're shifting the risk from council to Peak Services so that we're removing the risk that we've been carrying for the last 2 years, where we've struggled to find resources in this space. The second proposal that's before you is more specific around addressing significant changes that need to be implemented from the external audit findings that you adopted in February 2021, and that's around the areas of communications, where we need to improve our website and distribution of information that way. That would be equal to all other local government authorities that we see elsewhere in the country. Procurement, it's more specialised. Whilst we continue to procure things through using local staff, it's the consolidation so that we can reduce freight costs, and also doing more specific tenders that would be coming forward, hopefully, should we gain federal government funding for the wastewater treatment works or waste management or any of those things. And the last one is HR support. So whilst we have got a new HR officer that commenced this week on Island, that's a generalist position, and so this would be addressing the things that external audit findings said that we were missing in policy development and the like that need to be in urgently within the next 12 months. So, Mr. Interim Administrator, I put before you 2 proposals so that we can start meeting the requirements that we've given guarantees to the Commonwealth Department that we will have some of these changes implemented within the next 12 months. Across to you for any questions.
Thank you. And I note that the 2 proposals to which you refer are being treated as commercial incompetence proposals because of the confidential pricing information that they contain. So there is no issue in terms of transparency of explaining to the community what services are intended to be purchased. The reason the supporting documentation is being treated confidentially is because it contains sensitive pricing information.
That's correct.
To which LGAQ is entitled to confidentiality.
That's right.
Thank you. I just note at the outset that over the course of the past 20 hours and even prior to that, I have had the extensive opportunities, and in the last 24 hours, amounting to quite some hours of opportunity to liaise with the General Manager in terms of discussion of the issues that were raised with me in the public forum sessions and clarifying what the tender arrangements or what the contract arrangements propose in relation to some of the issues that have been raised with me. And I'm going to comment on those issues now before making a resolution in relation to this matter. I want to say that aware of some concerns on Island about the report and the recommendations that are before me today, this week I engaged directly with several community members who made oral submissions to me on the subject. Some also followed up on these in writing. While I respect the time and energy that each submitter put into their respective positions, any concerns they might have had about what went wrong at NERC when proper governance and financial management arrangements and controls were lacking seem to be outweighed in their submissions by concerns about shifting work to the mainland. Despite extensive publicity about what is happening to NERC, there's little grasp of the urgency to rectify the situation. There is a view that even simple operational responsibilities, such as workforce arrangements, that the Local Government Act bestows directly on the General Manager, must first be thrashed out around the parish pump, while the ensuing delays paralyse the business. Putting it plainly, by the end of 2020, NERC was at the precipice of financial implosion. Facing an abyss, NERC only avoided that implosion because of the actions of Mr. Roach, who, upon his arrival at NERC, had found it impossible to readily assess NERC's financial position from the records and systems that he inherited. If not for his urgent actions to import the necessary expertise to Ireland, expertise that did not exist here, to reconstruct financial records that were completely inadequate for an understanding of the Council's real financial position. If not for that, the Commonwealth could not have reached the necessary level of understanding or confidence to provide NERC with the substantial bailout and support that has subsequently occurred. If NERC's leadership had continued to fail to grasp its financial position, any bailout would have been most unlikely. While the public inquiry has been undertaking its job, instead of NERC struggling on in a disorderly fashion, its interim administration is putting an orderly framework in place to transition NERC to sustainability. Most of the submissions are intended to remind me of the importance of local jobs and of NERC's responsibility to the Norfolk Island economy. I need no reminding of that. I'm fully aware of it. In fact, I explained my position on that to the community at a public meeting held on the 6th of April, convened by the Council of Elders. In ordinary circumstances, the desirability for NERC's resources to flow through the local island economy is self-evident, and it's at the forefront of my mind. But these are not ordinary circumstances. I acknowledge that I've been provided with a copy of minutes of a public meeting held to discuss today's topic on the 20th of October. Shamefully, at every opportunity, one of the vocal group opponents of reform here on Ireland seems to see value in repeatedly obstructing NERC initiatives. The remedial actions to be delivered by Peak Services aimed at achieving the transition face orchestrated resistance from this group. Given the publicity earlier this year to NERC's impecunious financial position, the group's lack of acceptance of reality and their resistance to genuine actions aimed at NERC's recovery is remarkable. It would be good if they could make some positive contribution to reform. But the obstructive position set out in documents that they presented to me this week is quite ill-informed. NERC won't be distracted by that. The difficult position NERC is in calls for some hard reforms, and some will unavoidably be painful. That submission aside, the strong similarities between the other submissions lead me to respond broadly to their overall themes as follows. Many of the issues raised with me this week are operational issues that require immediate rectification. While resourcing of longer-term issues may require a strategic policy position, the Peak Services proposal relates to short-term operational arrangements. The actions proposed do not significantly influence Norfolk Island's social capital to the extent that has been suggested. By illustration, when Boral employees were on island for 10 months, while the local economy was boosted, they didn't enrich the social capital of the community. The Local Government Association of Queensland, through its business arm Peak Services, has a strong track record of providing the kind of short-term solutions needed at NERC. I realise that community consultation was a commitment by the Mayor at the time on strategic policy matters. The work that Peak Services will undertake is distinctively an operational issue. NERC communications have been undertaken on island for a number of years with only mediocre success. The peak services engagement will develop communication processes, programs and formats to eventually be handed back to in-house management. Access to specialist procurement services will include group purchasing arrangements and the extensive savings and efficiencies that will flow from that, hitherto not available to NERC. Organisational charts are available on Council's website, along with Council reports on the external audit findings and other adopted plans. Transition to sustainability is a badge to identify the change program arising from the external audit findings, the operational plan, the 9-point action plan, and any directions from the Assistant Minister to be made after the public inquiry. Deferring a decision to fix significant operational issues now will have immediate and long-term implications. The current governance and financial management challenges need to be addressed immediately to avoid continuing organisational paralysis and compliance failures. Short notice period for this extraordinary meeting was addressed when the meeting was rescheduled from Tuesday to Friday this week. I apologise that this became necessary. Calls for an arm's length review of the need to temporarily supplement governance and financial services would unnecessarily duplicate the work of several other reviews. The public inquiry commenced not more than 6 months ago, the grassroots and the Nexia reports. The General Manager's report today addresses why NERC needs temporary staff resources immediately. Future needs would be addressed after 12 months. NERC's move to the Local Government Association of Queensland reflects the MOU initiatives between the Commonwealth and Queensland, aligning Norfolk to Queensland for state services. There have been no approaches to NERC from the Australian Government urging that NERC pursue an agenda of privatisation of our assets and or services, as suggested by one submitter. Peak Services will assist Council with a large backlog of work, including external audit findings that have not progressed significantly in the past 4 months, due primarily to the 1,000 hours required to respond to the public inquiry. There are approximately 60 external audit findings to complete, which are the more complex ones. They require short-term resources. Once they are finished, a long-term resource will not necessarily be required. The 2020-2021 annual report and financial statements are due at the end of October, that is at the end of this very month, and NERC has no accountants to complete the work. The 2019-2020 annual report and financial statements were completed earlier this year, 9 months after the regulatory due date. That was completely unacceptable. Significant compliance issues not addressed for the past 14 months, primarily due to the pandemic, shortage of on-island resources and existing staff time spent just putting out fires. The Audit and Risk Committee has now adopted an action plan that requires resourcing. The asset management system has required significant resourcing to build. It now requires integration into the financial systems for end-of-year financial reporting. End-of-year Civica financial system procedures need to be completed to allow the system to be accurate for the new financial year. Development of financial reporting requires technical skills for the systems to be made available to the public for full transparency. The outcomes of the public inquiry are as yet unknown, but having read the transcripts of the hearings, the findings will quite likely be demanding of NERC's asset management planning and long-term financial planning, which will be addressed by engaging short-term resources to complete the tasks and then allow the on-island staff to continue to monitor and implement. And finally, there is no capacity within the organisation to train new local staff to do the required work in the time frames for completion. Even if there was, the time taken to do so would only add to the current work backlogs. So having made those statements, I therefore resolve as follows. 1, the board considers that a satisfactory result will not be achieved by inviting tenders due to lack of alternative providers in these services in this isolated region. 2, the council approves the engagement with Peak Services for both proposals as detailed in the commercial in confidence attachments for a period of 12 months. 3, that formal reports be presented to council every quarter, or 3 monthly, on the progress of the Peak Services resource support arrangements and the progress of the transition to sustainability program. And 4, that my preamble to this decision be incorporated into the minutes of this extraordinary council meeting. So resolved. I'll move to item 7, which is urgent business without notice. Mr. General Manager, is there any urgent business?
No.
There are no questions for the next meeting.